Yesterday, August 1st, celebrated in the pagan or Wiccan calendar, Lammas or Lunasa. This day comes in the heat of summer when the fields are full and fertile. Crops are abundant and ripe for picking. This is the time when the first grains are threshed and gardens are overflowing with summer bounty. For the ancients, with whom these observances originated, the cycle of grain or cereal crops, so essential to their survival, was something altogether mysterious. Growth and then harvest and fall and rebirth, mirroring their own human cycle of birth, life, death, and new birth. So similar attributes were ascribed to those seasonal events, and rituals were created to encourage the process. It was a time of celebration and festivity, with the intent of propitiating the goddesses and gods to ensure an ongoing bountiful harvest. A writer, Ellen Dugan, notes in her book, Seasons of Witchery, Celebrating the Sabbats with the Garden Witch, Lunasa celebrates the natural energy of abundance that is here and all around us. All you have to do is be willing to tap into it. We are far removed from those agricultural cycles, with all foods of all kinds readily at our fingertips most of the time all year round. Some of us might engage in vegetable gardening and experience some of the planting, nurturing, harvest cycle. But even if we're just sweating our way through these sweltering summer days on city streets or country roads, we can still sense that notion of abundance, of fullness. Perhaps it is good to pause here and take note of this celebration and the bounty it might promise, and the abundance we have all around us. What does abundance mean for you? Clearly, in its simplest understanding, it's a lot of something. Overflowing bounty, perhaps. And maybe I'm going to share with you a zucchini I harvested from my garden, because if you don't watch zucchini, they grow very big. That's abundance. But we also have to recognize and face an abundance of other things as well. It's not always just good stuff. There is an abundance of inequity. There is an abundance of inequity. The ongoing Black Lives Matter and human rights protests are being met with violence exerted by military-style policing. There was an abundance of worry and confusion as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to unfold and economic fragility plagues so many. There is an abundance of distrust and animus, as is evidenced in our political system. So I acknowledge that there is a kind of shadow side of abundance, and that we may also have an abundance of privilege that can set us apart from the rest of the world sometimes. But I also note it is neither helpful nor healthy to dwell on the abundance of awful things in the world. And it is healthy and helpful to focus on the strength and encouragement we receive from looking at life as the gift that it is. I think we really need the celebration and gratitude Lammas or Lunasa invites. Perhaps we can find some of this magical and mystical way in such a life of abundance right here among us. The abundance of human care and compassion and goodwill and courage and wisdom that we must summon to face or endure all the rest. That is why I chose the reading Nafisa shared from the book Braiding Sweetgrass. I was introduced to this book in a program on resistance and resilience that was offered by Midva Lombard Theological School and the Church of the Larger Fellowship. around the time of the inauguration in 2017. Many of us were reeling from those election results and not sure of the way forward. Dr. Sharon Welch recommended this book, and I had to wonder about her choice because I was looking for a manual, a step-by-step guide of how we were going to get through the next 4 years and not be undone by what was, or seemed to me at the time, an administration shrouded in an abundance of horrible possibilities. This book was not that. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a mother, scientist, honored professor, and enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. As a botanist, Kimmerer has been trained to ask questions of nature with the tools of science. As a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, she embraces the notion that plants and animals are our oldest teachers. Kimmerer shows how other living things, like asters and goldenrods, strawberries and squash, salamanders, algae, and sweetgrass, offer us gifts and lessons, even if we've forgotten how to hear their voices. The book itself is a series of linked narratives and meditations that look at the natural world, at the stories, practices, and rituals of her people, and the science behind much of what we know as well, revealing truths that we can use to rebuild our lives. Of her writing, she says, I wanted readers to understand that Indigenous knowledge and Western science are both powerful ways of knowing, and that by using them together, we can imagine a more just and joyful relationship with the earth. So let us think about strawberries. Dr. Kimmerer writes, in a way, I was raised by strawberries, fields of them. It was the wild strawberries beneath the dewy leaves on an almost summer morning who gave me my sense of the world and my place in it. As a child in upstate New York, there were miles of old hayfields behind her house, long abandoned farmland that had not yet been taken over by trees and forest. After school was done, she and her siblings would race off into the field looking for wild strawberries. She says you could smell them before you saw them. The fragrance mingled with the smell of the sun and the damp ground, the smell of June. They would head out to find their favorite patches. Once the berries grew sweeter and bigger under the leaves, she'd only pick the reddest of the red ones, leaving the pink ones for tomorrow. Even now, she says, finding a patch of wild strawberries still touches her with a sense of a sensation of surprise and a feeling of unworthiness and gratitude for the generosity and kindness that comes with an unexpected gift wrapped in red and green. For Dr. Kimmerer, strawberries shaped her view of a world full of gifts, simply scattered at your feet. Abundance. A gift that comes to you through no action of your own, free, having moved toward you without your beckoning. It is not a reward, she writes. You cannot earn it or call it to you or even deserve it, and yet it appears. Your only role is to be open-eyed and present. Such gifts exist in a realm of humility and history, and as with random acts of kindness, we do not know their source. As a child, Kimmerer experienced the world as a gift economy. Goods and services were not purchased but received as gifts from the earth. This, of course, is a child's view of things, and she was, she writes, blissfully unaware of how my parents must have struggled to make ends meet in the wage economy raging far from this field of abundance. Gifts from the earth or from each other establish a particular relationship and obligation of sorts, to give, to receive, and to reciprocate. The field of wild strawberries gave to them, and the children took the berries and made them into a special strawberry shortcake to give to their dad. And so then, after that, they must try to give back to the strawberries. But how do you do that? When the berry season was done, the plants would send out slender red runners across the ground to make new plants for the next season. Kimmerer was fascinated by the way they would travel across the ground looking for good places to root. So she went and weeded out little patches of bare ground in the field so that the runners could touch down. Sure enough, tiny little roots would emerge from the runner, and by the end of the season, there were even more plants ready to bloom under the next strawberry moon. In gratitude for the abundant gift of those wild strawberries, not just as something delicious to eat, but as sources of memory and love, she would make room for and help nurture new growth. The nature of an object can be changed by the way it comes into our hands. It's either as a gift or as a commodity. Kimmerer offers this example of a pair of wool socks with red and gray stripes. The ones you purchase at the store will keep your feet warm. And maybe you might think of and feel grateful for the sheep the wool came from, and the worker who operated the knitting machine. But that's it. The socks are a commodity. There is no bond of reciprocity beyond a polite thank you exchanged when the money and the package change hands. But, Kimmerer notes, if those very same socks with red and gray stripes were knitted by my grandmother and given to me as a gift, that changes everything. A gift creates ongoing relationship. I will write a thank you note and I will take good care of them. And if I am a very gracious grandchild, I will wear them when she visits, even if I don't like them. Wild strawberries fit the definition of gift, but grocery store berries do not. They are a commodity. Kimmerer notes, the field made a gift of berries to us, and we made a gift of them to my father. The more something is shared, the greater its value becomes. This is hard to grasp, steeped as we are in the notion of private property, where others are, by definition, excluded from sharing. That is the fundamental nature of gifts. They move, and their value increases with their passage. As Kimmerer notes, she is a plant scientist who speaks the language of reason, but she is also a poet, and the world speaks to her in metaphor. She writes, when I speak of the gift of berries, I do not mean that Fragaria virginiana has been up all night making a present just for me. What I mean, of course, is that our human relationship with strawberries is transformed by our perspective. It is human perception that makes the world a gift. When we view the world this way, strawberries and humans alike are transformed. The relationship of gratitude and reciprocity thus developed can increase the evolutionary fitness of both plant and animal. The stories we choose to shape our behaviors have adaptive consequences. Can approaching life this way, seeing it as a gift that opens us up to ongoing abundance, help us become or remain people of gratitude and hope? I think so. Even if it's hard sometimes, I think it does that. I believe looking for and embracing the ethic of relationships and of reciprocity strengthens us individually and as a community. So I'm closing this sermon with additional advice from Dr. Kimmerer. And these words apply to all interactions, human to human and human to all other species. She offers this advice. Know the ways of the ones who take care of you, be they people, animal, or plant, so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself. Be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before taking and abide by the answer. Never take the first, never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Never take more than half and leave some for others. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Share. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you. May we be sustained by these gifts of life. Simple gifts that ground us and free us to come down where we ought to be and to be who we are meant to be and to be there for and with each other. Our closing hymn is from our great hymnal, number 16, which is a gift to be simple, offered to us today by Jonathan Long and Gerald Brown.